millennium.
I've never seen it, but I'll give it a watch. It's got Alan Rickman in it. I know it's the bad guy.
Yes. What are we
Cut his heart out with a spoon.
Mr. Potter, our newest celebrity.
Yes.
So why do I feel like I need to join the army?
Oh, you've recorded.
We're going.
I was just daydreaming.
What's going?
Okay. Why do you feel like you should join the army?
All of those trailers before the film was, it's a state of mind.
Yeah,
Maybe you have it.
I always find, so we've just been to the cinema and we're recording straight afterwards. And inundated with adverts, but also specifically like recruitment adverts and specifically Army, Marine, Navy. I do find that going to the cinema, the trailers are like waterboarding you with, to use that horrible expression, with just like stuff. So every single trailer was just like, boom, Army.
But they sneak up on you.
Yeah, you do.
Like sometimes you think it's like a humble ad for insurance.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you could find yourself at the Royal Marines.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, really? Have I?
You're watching a nice advert, and then right at the end, someone get their neck snapped, and it's like, boom, we're a team.
Yeah.
You can be part of the team.
If you can fix a bike, you can kill someone.
These are, if people aren't aware, these Royal Navy adverts and the Marines and stuff, they're like basically they're like a cutscene from Call of Duty.
Yeah.
At the end, someone's just
like
put,
soap,
join the Marines. I'm like, is it like that though, or is it actually just a lot of sitting around?
Last night I saw Bullet Train and there was one that really snuck up on me, and it was, you know when the Terminator has no skin?
Yes.
And they're just the T-1000s walking around. It was like something like that, and I thought, oh, am I watching a trailer? And it was like, robots will never replace you, not the army. And I was like, oh my God, just
Okay,
so watch a film.
Does that mean there's been a focus group where they've gone, people are afraid of technology and their jobs getting replaced?
Everyone.
Well,
drones.
We'll go for that. We'll prey on their fears of being replaced because you know what? Can't replace a human being.
Yeah.
What about drones? Well, we'll get drone pilots.
Yeah.
Okay. What about bomb disposal robots? Well, we'll get bomb disposal robot fixers.
Either way, I'm in. I'm signed off. This is over. I'm going. Yeah.
And then the police. We had an advert for the police.
Yeah.
We had an advert for being a teacher. Basically, as I said to you,
people
at the
who
time,
are clearly unemployed.
Yeah, people
lost
unemployed. They were like,
souls.
"Who's going to the cinema at 10:30 in the morning on a Saturday?" Unemployed people who. We both have jobs. Just for clarification. Yes. But fine if you don't. I don't know why I'm going with this. James, change me.
You're good enough as you are. You don't need to join anything.
You are beautiful. So you're back from Greece.
I am. Yeah, Kefalonia specifically.
Yes, and this wasn't. This was actually a holiday, not a trip.
This was a holiday. Yeah. Lovely. Love Greece.
Yeah. Shocker.
Ticks.
Shocker. Who knew?
Many boxes. Yeah.
Let me guess. It was sunny.
Beautiful.
Beautiful beaches.
There were some beaches I went to that were like postcard screensaver level quality beaches. And I was like, oh, this is where they bottle Gatorade.
Yes.
It's like the water is so blue. I know it's like the cliche, oh, the water's so blue. But I genuinely was like, the fact that this doesn't taste like blue raspberry is shocking to me when I get into it.
There's just a giant slush puppy machine around the corner,
just
turning it.
Some guys like wheeling it. Yeah, it was great. I went to one place in particular called Assos or ASOS, sorry if I'm not saying it right, which was very like...
did all the shopping.
I know Talented Mr. Ripley is, it's just shelves of clothes. Yeah. I know the Talented Mr. Ripley is Greece, but it had
Italy.
Sorry, I know it's Italy, but this had like real Positano, Lake Como vibes.
Right, yeah.
Beautiful seaside town with
Retro,
like forests in the horizon, beautiful blue water, stony beaches, amazing restaurant. Beautiful. Beautiful.
And when you came back to the UK, it was the same temperature.
Yes, which I found really irritating. I almost even though there's something nice about it being warm in London, it's quite unnerving to get off the plane and it be hot or even hotter than it was when you left.
Yeah, and when you left Greece in August.
And like, there's that nice thing when you go on holiday, you get off the plane, you're like, whoa, it's hot, might be too hot. I want to come back to London. I expected it to like have to put my coat on.
Yeah, for it to be raining.
Or just like grey, boiling hot.
A lot of our listeners are from the UK, but if you're not, we are in like the 5th week of just a never-ending cycle of heat, and everywhere you go is brown. There is no greenery left. It's just shriveled brownness.
And I know we love a moan about the weather.
I know we do.
Boy, do we love a moan about the weather. I mean, the royal we. But it's just out of control.
Like we've said before, we're not built for the heat. The UK is not built. There's no,
On the tube just now, we were like, this is global warming. This is it.
We were talking to each other and beads of sweat were on our brow, like running down our face. We're having a very normal conversation. It's only midday. It's 37 degrees currently. And you and I...
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. You're lucky. Your flat is
in the shade.
Quite cool. Yeah.
It's all right. The sun doesn't shine.
You must be north facing.
Yes.
Well done. Good for you. Mine is east facing. Not so good.
Yeah, you got
Get that morning light.
Yes, yeah.
Big windows.
Toasty.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, welcome back to the UK, James. Glad you had a nice holiday.
It's good to be back. I'm going away tomorrow for work. I'm never here.
Your passport is just like it's just like riddled with stamps.
Genuinely, I had a guy look at my passport and he was like, "Whoa."
Sir, could you please clarify what the job you do?
With like Djibouti and like 12 other stamps in there. And, like the Djibouti one is like 3 pages long of all the paperwork you need and like someone to sign it.
Is this where you can reveal that like you're actually like a non-dom? And
I'm a spy.
You don't have actually a resident status anymore. You can't be in the UK for longer than 90 days because you don't pay tax.
It's a really great financial situation. I want you to like open one of my sock drawers and it's like a Jason Bourne film. You just see like 11 passports, $10,000 cash and a gun. So, George, you and I are fresh from an AM screening of Nope.
Yes.
We went to the IMAX, the BFI IMAX in London, biggest screen we could find to go and
biggest
see it.
Biggest screen in the UK.
Biggest screen in the UK. It's Jordan Peele's latest film. We most recently did Get Out and Us. Nope is a film that I don't really want to say much about in terms of plot-wise, but what you will have seen from the trailer is it stars Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer, and it's about these two people who own this very old horse filming sanctuary.
They're wranglers. They're animal
wranglers, and they have this. Their great grandfather was one of the first people to ever have been depicted on film. And I think you probably do know this image. It's of a black man riding a horse, and it's like a 2-second clip that goes on repeat. And they were like, "This is our claim to fame." I think it's the Hayward Wranglers or something like that. And they have this huge property in somewhere in the desert in California where they look after all these horses, and they sort of float between film sets, sort of struggling to make ends meet with the business because there are complications. And they start noticing some very strange goings on their property. There is also a neighboring property from this other guy who sometimes buys horses off them. It's a character played by an actor called Stephen Yeun. And they sort of both work in tandem with each other, and they're also experiencing weird goings on. If you've seen the trailer, you've seen some of the imagery that this film is evoking and what sort of the threat might be. And yeah, the film, I wouldn't really say much more about the film, but it's about what they're trying to do to sort of mitigate that and capture it. But George, I think you and I have been fairly interested in this film for a while now. I think we reacted to the trailer a few months ago. It's sort of been on the tip of our tongues. I can say we're both big fans of Jordan Peele's first two films. He feels like he's got this whole new brand of sort of psycho-racial horror, however you want to categorize it. But George, you've just seen Nope in a really big screen, and a really loud screen.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting when you said there about like imagery and lots of striking imagery. When from the first image you see of this film, it reminds you how good Jordan Peele is at creating an image that burns into your mind.
100%.
Like, it's not so even about composition. It's just about the object and it's everything is iconic. It's almost like immediately iconic.
The implied subtext of what you're seeing is always rich.
And there's always something very curious about his imagery that it's, it doesn't always have to be scary or funny. Jordan Peele's films always kind of blur the line between horror and comedy, right?
Yes.
Because we know him having this comedy career before
he was
and obviously we know his like horror tones from the previous two films, but his imagery is always kind of curious and it blends the two. And you look at something, you think, I don't know whether to find that funny. I don't know whether to find that disturbing. I'm intrigued. And all this intriguing imagery runs throughout the whole film. And there was many times I just thought, oh, that's a really interesting shot. And that's a great shot. I'm like got a smile on my face for how joyful that shot is. I think it's an interesting one where I think it's taken a step apart from his previous two films.
Yeah.
Not only in terms of what it's about, but I think also in just its construction. Whereas Get Out and Us are very much like thrillers, and they follow the beats of a thriller. Nope is a mystery that takes its time in a careful, methodical approach to build up to basically sort of... it's not a big reveal, but it just takes its time to arrive you at a certain point.
Yeah.
I think that my initial reaction is I think it slightly lacks the real deeper themes of Get Out, or at least the power of the deeper themes of Get Out.
Yeah.
And I think it also slightly lacks the cheap thrills of Us. So Us is very cheap, some of the thrills are, but very funny. The Hall of Mirrors at the beginning, the whole home invasion sequence, real edge of your seat things. But that's not to say that there aren't interesting elements in there. There's a whole thing you from the beginning about not only black people's relationship with cinema, but also their relationship with just the kind of image you're seeing. So there's this whole sort of Western inflection to the film, and Daniel Kaluuya is this farmhand, and immediately I was thinking, I've only seen Westerns and farmhands and cowboys depicted as white, right? And this and his relationship with his father, Keith David, you just have this kind of setup where I was like, immediately that feels refreshing and different. And yes, there's this deeper thing about with just their family connection with cinema, and also about black people's role of using film making as well, right? The whole relationship with getting something filmed. I'm trying to tiptoe around revealing too much. Sorry, but so I think those things are there. I think it kind of lacks the best parts of his previous two films. I still think though there is enough in there to like really see through. There's very quizzical elements. There's a subplot regarding a subplot I really enjoyed regarding a TV series in the 90s. It's as unspoilerific as I can say it. That I thought was interesting and thrilling and really like the idea of. I'm still stretching to try and bring that back to where that links in with the wider story. And it kind of, that's how I kind of feel about Nope, is that you've got these kind of disparate elements, and we should say that the story is told broken up into essentially chapters. They're not named, they're not called chapters, but they are
the names of the horses.
Yeah, it's episodic, and all those little moments are great and work. I think, unlike the previous films, though, when they come together, I don't think it like brings me to a point where I think, yeah. It really clicks. Same. And I go, oh, great. I think, okay, yep, I enjoyed that bit and I enjoyed that bit, but I haven't awoken into any sort of deeper meaning here. Now, like even with Us, flawed at the end, but I still
leaps.
Massively interstellar-sized leaps. But I got to the end of Us and I thought, I understand what you've been trying to do here.
Yeah.
With Nope, I've kind of thought, okay, there's an interesting idea in there. I don't think it's game changing. What about you?
I feel like similar. I left the screening of Nope thinking I had a really great time, but I also think I wanted a little bit more to chew on. I exactly mirror what you said when you were talking about how his imagery forces you to look further into it, and you're constantly so engaged with what he's showing to you, and the camera is constantly slowly rolling in the whole time, and it forces you as an audience member to lean in every single time that's happening. And I just catch myself going, oh my god, I'm going even closer to this massive screen. I did really enjoy it. It's definitely it's like a movie event film. So much more so than his other horror films. And I don't think that's to its detriment or as its benefit. It just felt so much more like a visual spectacle, like what it was portraying on screen, and the setting and what it was trying to do was just bigger. And I really enjoyed its all-round presentation. But because of the way in which I know Jordan Peele films, the way in which some of the ideas in the beginning and some of the external scenes were presented to me, I think I was waiting for something else to happen.
Yes.
I was waiting for, I don't know if I want to see a twist, but an added element that would make me
punch,
go...
the gut, like the punch to land of the third act.
Punch. Yeah. And I think the characters in the end have a couple of moments towards the end where they really look at each other. I'm really dancing around spoilers. They really look at each other and they really engage. And I feel like there was something else that could have really tied these characters to have a really meaningful end. What it builds to in the action sequence, I would call it, at the end, brilliantly crafted, visually spectacular. Yeah. But when the credits rolled, I wasn't like, aha. Yeah. I was like, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. I agree. When I finished Get Out, I was like, that's good.
Powerful.
And when I finished Us, I was like, that was a good time. I had a really good time. And with this, it was kind of like, yeah, okay. We got there. I think that, I mentioned that subplot. Do you see what I mean about that? Like, enjoyable, but I thought that was going to come back into it and be part of this sort of reveal. But really, it's more just contextual about a character than anything else.
Unless we're completely missing something. So just to be clear, we're not going to spoil Nope in the first half of this review. But what we will do is we'll give a spoiler warning at some point into our conversation, and we'll ask you to, if you haven't seen the film, switch away and then come back and listen to it if you haven't seen the film. But just dancing around spoilers, yes, that scene sort of, maybe we've missed something.
Perhaps, but it invited you to expect, I think, a greater thing
than it
actually gave. What I will say is, I always love Daniel Kaluuya. and Keke Palmer in this is great as well. What I like about Daniel Kaluuya in this is that I've seen him do performances which are like fiery and energetic and mad, and he's slow in this.
Yeah.
He's not slow stupid, but
He's
his
not
character
articulate.
is so. There's a bit where one of the horse bolts like in front of him, and he barely reacts. He just sort of like watches it go, and he sort of shrugs, and he's got this kind of very heavy, worn out.
You see, he just looks like a
he carries
guy who
himself.
works on a farm all day and doesn't speak to people.
Exactly.
And that's not where his skill set lies. And I thought that those two characters, Keke Palmer and Daniel Kaluuya's character, are so wonderfully contrasted. And there's a scene very, very early on where Keke Palmer is meant to be the one who sort of does the safety briefing when they're on sets and goes, okay, guys, this is what we have to do. And Daniel Kaluuya is like, trying to do it, but she's not come back yet, and he's literally cannot get 3 words out. And all of a sudden she jumps back in and she's just dripping with charisma and charm, and she's like, okay guys, thank you very much, and that was my great granddaddy. And you're like, oh, that's where the skills separate, and they're very different characters and critical of each other for that, aren't they?
And I know what you mean about the family relationships. I do think there was almost like one ingredient missing there
Between the two.
And even in the whole dynamic, I mean, Keith David as well. I think we could have drawn more out of his role and his relationship, and the history of that ranch. But what Jordan Peele is very good at is taking a genre territory you're familiar with, playing with it, unpacking it,
putting his voice into it.
Putting his voice into
despite
it, putting his spin on it in a way that is titillating and playful and disruptive and surprising, and then putting that back together and presenting it to you as a film, right? Because I don't think the film doesn't work. There's no point of it where I thought, this has really let itself down here. It functions.
Paced
I
well.
just think it's for all the bold statements it makes and all the big vision and the ideas and the very original, that's what we always love about Jordan Peele films. They're always very original.
Very original.
It's kind of like, okay. Do you know what it is? Is I think that we'll look back after Jordan Peele has made several more films, and I'll be like when you get a short story collection from an author.
Yes.
And usually in a short story collection, some of them are great, and then there's a couple ones you go, oh, okay, yeah, that was fine. I kind of feel like Nope is maybe like the it's not a hit single from it's just an album track.
Really solid album track.
It's a solid album track, but it's not a hit single.
Even despite us saying it's not our favourite Jordan Peele film, there are so many really well executed sequences that make up that film.
Yes.
Specifically what I would call the first real horror sequence when Daniel Kaluuya is in a ranch.
Yes.
And he switches off the lights, turns around, and the lights are back on.
Yes.
And there is this moment where I was like, holy shit. And I helped myself being like, nope. When you see what's, being teased and is there, it was such good. It's like that, that in horror, sometimes the quieter and stiller something is, the less that you do, you're just left with an image.
Totally, less is more.
And this doesn't spin anything, but when like the second head is there, I was just like completely.
But that
gone.
scene aside, and maybe a couple of other moments of kind of, I wouldn't say this film is scary.
It's really just a couple of brief moments.
I think if people are going to see a Jordan Peele film, I mean, not that Get Out is scary or Us is scary, but I do think there are moments in Get Out and Us that are kind of hair raising.
Yeah.
I think if you were expecting that with Nope, you'll be disappointed. It's not that kind of film. But I also don't think the film presents itself as that. I don't think it tries to be that. Like I said, it's trying to be a mystery more than a thriller.
And it builds to a huge action set
huge
piece.
set
Massive
piece.
scene. Like if you've seen the trailer, like these huge wide shots of Daniel Kaluuya running across the ranch with the shadow of something behind him. Like you'll see the scale.
Valley. Yeah, totally.
Oh, and I felt like I really got a good sense of that valley that we were shooting in, of where everyone was, how far I was from here, and what it meant to be here and there. I thought it did quite well to make me always know what was going on and where.
And he's good at building a distinctive world. Like there's a bit where they visit Stephen Yeun's character in Jupiter's Reach, is it called? Jupiter's. And it's this sort of like very hokey theme park with
roadside. Everything's made of like facade cardboard.
And then they visit him in his office and everything, all the little details, not only of the amusement park, but his office and the fact that he used to be like a celebrity, and it's just very evocative, very very impressionable, and I like that. That's very rewarding. So I think kind of tiptoeing around it, what we both kind of feel the same thing, which is like, great, Jordan. I'll always watch what you have to get presented to us.
Still fascinated by what you can produce.
I don't think it takes as big a leaps or punches in the same way as the other two films are.
Yeah.
But perfectly fine time. You know, okay, we saw it in IMAX, and I appreciated the wide vistas.
Yeah.
And I appreciated the sound, but I didn't think it was a definitive IMAX experience. Actually,
Sure. I don't think you've lost out seeing it on a small screen. It has the Hoyt van Hoytema fingerprints all over it in an amazing way. If you've enjoyed his work, the spectacle of seeing things roll along at fast speeds in large format, you're in for a treat. But I wouldn't say it's like, oh my God, you've missed out if you haven't seen it on IMAX.
Do you know what I also think is that we know I talked about the imagery, and there's loads of moments that make me sort of put a smile on my face because they're so playful. There was a moment as well. This isn't an image; it's a use. There's a bit where energy fluctuates in this film. You know, lights go out, batteries die, and that kind of thing. And there's a moment where a 1980s song is being played full blast, and then because of a power outage, and they play it throughout this whole scene at this really low speed. That's very fun and very disturbing. I was like, that is so... I'm enjoying you doing that, Jordan, like using this sort of 80s track. Really, really...
There were moments when there was a scene when the threat that was upon them was approaching, and every single sound in the film just went quiet. All you could hear was like footsteps. You know, you would have dust, you would have wind, you would have this, and you had like electronic sounds because all the power went out. You just heard nothing. And he did so many reaction shots. Yeah. You know, there's that scene when Stephen Yeun is addressing people to the crowd, and you know it approaches, and there are like 6 or 7 different reaction shots of people just turning up to look at the sky, and it just and that camera is still inching forwards closer to you. It's just a really well presented film. It is a much more of a event spectacle than any of his other films were. Not to say that it's more cinematographically profound. Just like it felt like a big event film. It felt like a summer blockbuster popcorn.
Yes,
action.
but also quite still stripped down and focused. You know, like I said, it's not hasn't got a huge cast.
No.
I also think this isn't actually about the film. I think the film is very hard to market, and I kind of worry how this is going to engage with people because. First of all, in the UK, we're in the middle of the massive heat wave, and people famously don't usually go to the cinema when the sun's out.
Yeah.
We saw it in a screening that was obviously, because it was a Saturday morning, quite empty. Impeccably well-behaved audience, by the way. I was very, very happy with that.
Talking the trailers, and then shoop.
Yep, minute, great. But when you look at the poster for this film, and when it's on the side of the bus, when I've seen the posters, I've looked at it and gone, that isn't selling that film to me. I know I'm going to watch it anyway, so I'm in, but just having a poster of Daniel Kaluuya, Kiki Palmer, and Stephen Yeun looking up at a very dark, cloudy sky.
It was a cloud with the bunting sticking out of it.
And I was like, that for me, it doesn't. It's so obscure, and I worry that the film is not going to reach a sort of a wider group of people. I mean, if you think, I'm not critiquing the poster design, but if you think about Get Out, that fantastic poster where it's just white and then that strip of band of Daniel Kaluuya's eyes in complete terror.
Yeah, and there's another one where he's just in the chair, like completely with the tears coming out of his eyes, and he's being hypnotized. Yeah. It was interesting. We sat next to someone who was, had come from out of London to watch it, and he was saying that he was sort of, young, maybe a bit younger than us, but was an engaged film watching person. He said it was his first Jordan Peele film, which I was almost a bit surprised because I just feel like his films have been really in the pop, like in the front of pop culture since they've been out. And I was always interested that he had come to see this one in cinema, paid a lot of money to see it in IMAX as his first Jordan Peele film. I was like, oh, if you like this, you've got 2 great films to go watch afterwards. But I thought it was interesting that he had come to see this one and hadn't seen Get Out or Us.
Do you know one thing is the real test is, before we talk about spoilers, is, I said it's not scary. I think what we are maybe missing is the effective thrills. And what I mean by that is, I actually showed Get Out and Us after I'd seen them to watch them again. I watched it with my parents.
Yeah.
And a good test to see if that film works is, those films work, is, they're not the demographic or the audience for those films really.
Yeah.
But they were still able to enjoy those films. I remember watching my parents watching those films, sort of going, okay, oh, right, okay. And like the bit in Get Out where he like runs at the groundskeeper like runs, and he's like, and I remember my parents reacting to that. And then when I watched Us, I remember when the home invasion thing happens, but I just love that bit. I remember looking at my dad, and he was like, and out of nowhere he just goes, I'd go on the lake and get in the boat and then just call the police. Yeah. So I don't think there's anything quite enough to really kind of hook you in with your imagination. It's more of a spectacle, as you say. But anyway, maybe we should talk about spoilers now, shall we?
I think so. There are things that plot related which are affecting my opinion. So spoiler warning. If you haven't yet gone to see Nope, please stop now. Come back. I will have time coded this in the YouTube so you can know when we're talking about spoilers. But this will now be going into plot details. We will now be going into plot details for Nope. So you've had your warning. Spoiler zone.
So the thing I wanted to talk about, I was tiptoeing around before, is it Grundy? What's the name of the ape? The chimpanzee.
Oh, yeah.
Grundo,
something like Grump and Grundy, yeah.
This chimpanzee, the film opens with this fantastic shot, like I said, of this
like a slip, a sort of a plimsoll
stood up
vertically
on it,
upright.
which again threw me because I kept thinking there's something like possessing that or holding it up. There's something supernatural about that shoe being there, and there's even a lingering shot of the shoe in a display case.
It comes back to it, yes.
But then that doesn't come back, and I kept thinking, is there something that happens in this event? So the film begins with this, you just hear it as a voiceover, and then it shows a clip of it of this sitcom being filmed in the 90s where which had an ape, I keep calling it ape, chimpanzee in it, which then went wild and killed some of the cast.
A balloon popped in the top of the studio and it just got completely triggered.
And you just see this chimpanzee covered in blood at the beginning, and there's just the feet of a dead body, and then it looks at the camera, right? And later we come back to that and we realise Stephen Yeun was the actor under the table, was a child actor, and the chimpanzee attacks and kills the other cast, but actually comes up to Stephen Yeun as a child and puts its hand out in a sign of trust, and the fist bump they would do on the show, and they go to do it, and then the chimpanzee is shot dead. And I was thinking...
This is the thing, by the way, that trained chimps do to seek approval of humans. They hold out their hand and wait for it to be touched as a way of like validation and forgiveness.
I know. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes told me that.
Yes, that does that as well, yeah.
And see, that whole sequence is great, but the only thing I got from it was like, okay, Stephen Yeun had this very traumatic event, which he doesn't... It's very hard to read how he actually feels about that event. He doesn't seem to be traumatized by it.
Yeah.
But he's also not like... Is he profiteering off it? I don't know.
The way which he eventually dies, I felt like didn't link.
Yeah, so anyway, my point is that he had this moment where he was almost connecting with a predator, with something that was bigger than him. And I guess that links back into the story with the beast, the monster in the sky, in that he's trying to do the same thing. He had this experience before where he was like, I will not be in that position again. I can make a deal with a predator. Does that kind of work?
To me, the theme was it's about whether or not it's possible or right to manipulate animals or anything in nature to create for your will, to create film. So in the beginning, right, you've got Daniel Kaluuya trying to get this horse on this film, right? And it's very touchy. He keeps trying to tell people, don't stand behind the horse, don't make loud noises, turn your phone off, please don't stand behind the horse. And there's a scene when he's in the film and someone stands behind the horse and the horse the guy who's doing the light reading puts this spherical silver ball in front of the horse, which means it's able to see behind itself. It panics, it kicks the makeup artist.
Yeah.
So the horse is now no longer good for the movie. Daniel Kaluuya can't get paid. And they're wheeling in a green CG horse to use instead.
Oh, yeah, I missed that bit, yeah.
Yeah, so they're literally how relevant it is to have actual practical horses. You've then got the fallout of this TV show where they tried to have an actual chimp be part of a sitcom. But of course, in their process to try and manipulate nature, everything went very wrong, and that happened. You've then got Stephen Yeun as a grown-up trying to create this like roadside alien show where he's able to feed this massive spaceship / being for everyone's entertainment, and it keeps going horribly wrong. And I feel like their whole business of trying to keep these horses for everyone's entertainment is what's twisted and what isn't working. And in the very end, they're trying to make a film about how they can capture this and make money, and how it's like the manipulation of nature for your own entertainment. That seemed to me to be the relevance of that first.
I still don't think that's a ground that doesn't really
scream at you.
Cool, interesting idea. Doesn't knock me out of my chair.
I could be completely wrong. This is my very fresh interpretation of all of those different sequences and why they were presented.
I mean, for me, the bit, it was just like when they were like, oh, the thing you think is a spaceship, it's actually a sentient being. It's a monster.
It is an alien.
It is a monster.
And that's the thing.
And I feel like they thought that was a much bigger reveal, and I was just kind of like, okay. So the threat is still a threat. It's just a slightly different.
The trailer very heavily implied it was UFOs and aliens, and it is a UFO alien, but the UFO is the alien, and it is this sort of shape-shifting, bioorganic entity that feeds on people, and then it sort of spits out the silverware.
Yeah,
it doesn't
spits
need
out the rubbish
keys and the change and the ties.
Great imagery.
Very cool.
With keys sort of just dotted around, and
that's how his father dies in the beginning.
Yeah. I think I like the obviously, and then taking from what you were just saying about trying to capture it and trying to capture a predator. Then there's this whole idea of, our ancestor was one of the first, as they say, first black actor, stuntman, and horse wrangler to be on film, right? Because they said that's the first moving image, right, that ever existed.
Yeah.
But no one knows his name, and he's kind of been written out of history. And it's like, well, we're going to be the first people to capture a UFO,
sell it to Oprah,
and we are going to make sure that we can get. It's almost, there's a subtext in there about reclaiming black heritage within film.
Yeah.
About reclaiming their place, which I like, and I think that's interesting. There's also sort of a tangent with this film director they bring in. Get that
very funny,
very tangential, very funny, and the whole use of film against digital.
Yeah,
it's like,
when the alien comes, it shuts off everything with a circuit board, and the only way they're able to do it is by like literally rolling film on a camera, and that's how he's able to capture it.
I mean, almost sometimes I think there was just too many ideas. So the bit towards the end where the silver helmeted motorcyclist turns up,
TMZ.
Well, that's the thing. At first I thought, what is this? And then it reveals to be it's a joke, right? So it's TMZ, which is obviously this exploitative media channel, and I just thought, oh, okay, so that was a joke in the end, and it does function within the plot, but I kept thinking, oh, is this going to be related to is it like something big going to happen? Oh no, it's just that.
I thought it was quite symbolic that he was wearing this fully reflective chrome helmet, almost like he was personalityless, but he just reflected everything else back at you. It's sort of, I got that, but the idea you could have introduced at that point in the story.
Yes.
But like, I was ready for it to be this is what it's about. I was fully ready for this to not be about aliens at all, and for it to be a huge twist 60% of the way through, and I'd be like, oh shit, this is what the film is.
Is it bad that whenever a filmmaker really goes bold, or like a filmmaker like Jordan Peele goes big with a bold concept, we expect them to land with a big twist at the end?
Yeah. Do you think we're just a bit too conditioned to expect a big turnaround?
I think maybe that's that kind of story. Like Get Out doesn't have a twist, but it has a big reveal that makes everything make sense.
Yes. Yeah.
This doesn't really have a reveal. It's just like, it's a monster. It's not a UFO, it's a monster.
And then there's a moment where you kind of think Daniel Kaluuya might have died when he was bringing the monster away from Keke Palmer. And they have this really great exchange where the camera really focuses in on them, and you can see they're like connecting, and they're looking at each other, and they're seeing. That moment for me, where there was a plot with more to say, could have been more powerful.
Yeah.
And when he's alive in the end, lovely.
Great.
I'm just
Didn't
feel that much.
Yeah.
A great time with it. But I just left thinking, there could have been something else to it.
So, fine, good stuff. Don't be discouraged, Jordan. Keep going. Not that you're going to listen to this at all.
Hey, mate, chill out.
But I always like watching a filmmaker make the film that they wanted to make, and that presenting his idea fully in his own way and competently as well. Like I said, neither of us think that film falls down at any point.
No.
There might have been a bit at the beginning where I thought this is taking its time to build up, but then I just realised that it was just structured differently to the other two films. So
I will say, I think it was just really cool tension building when you would have the alien just flick between clouds for a split second, and it wasn't hard. You knew exactly what you were looking at. Like that's a UFO at the time, and I'm like, oh, that's such a good little moment. And the cloud that doesn't move, and it's sort of hovering the clouds. And I just think the character of the filmmaker who had this like really gravelly, gruff voice, and he was until like halfway through the movie, he was always presented like on one arm, sitting down, going through some of his most iconic shots he'd ever seen,
which were all about predators, and also apex predators being trumped by their less.
Yes, it was like a boa constrictor killing a white Siberian tiger or something. It's just very cool. And in the beginning, the like floor manager of the shoot is just got the most amazing energy. He was like, "Okay, we're gonna go for a take. Can you tell the horse that we're gonna go for a take?"
I think actually I would just like to say I love the sound design.
Fantastic.
The creature has this sort of wailing scream where it kind of repeats the screams of whatever it sucks up. So, if it sucks up a whole load of people, as it goes past, you'll hear this kind of... And also the sounds of horses screaming as well. And it reminded me of Annihilation, the Alex Garland film. Do you remember seeing that? But do you remember in that where... there's one bit where the creature has absorbed the scream of one of the women and then comes back and repeats it back as its core. And that's funny enough, mentioning Annihilation, again, kind of a flawed film, but there's freakier moments in that actually than Nope. But they really there's not many crossover points between those two films, so I don't really want to compare them. So yeah, good sound design and effective imagery.
What did you make of the design when towards the end when the alien is like fully opened up and it's like this parachuted
like a paper lantern that's been cut,
and there's this sort of green core which flaps and folds. I actually wondered if they did any of that practically with material, but I reckon they did.
Do you know what's a shame is in that moment when it's become like this sort of ribbon-esque, balletic, elegant sort of like Pokemon-esque creature.
Yeah.
And she's trying to get a picture of it, and she does, and it's all about proving the authenticity of UFOs. I looked at it and I was like, but I don't believe that that's real because it's completely CGI. So when they show me the photo that captures the inflatable cowboy being eaten with thing, I was like, that looks like a doctored photo to me because that's a CGI alien.
How is that proof?
It worked better when it was just a disc, but when it went for the Windows Media Player visualizer look, right, with the cube, I kind of thought, and also in a way it didn't look like a Predator. It didn't look like a kind of, Predator with a small p, like a Predator that was going to eat things. It did as a disc because like it had this sort of like sea urchin design.
Yes, with a hole that sucks up.
A cross between like a stingray and a sea urchin.
Yes, stingray. It had that little like cut in the middle, which is where the front was.
But I don't. When it went like that full ribbon at the end, it didn't land really. I thought it was cool, but I became increasingly aware that I was watching a CGI.
You know the film Life that came out, I want to say 2016, 17?
Wow, I haven't seen it, but I remember
Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds. That is a film which isn't bad, but it's just like there's an alien on board the ship and they get picked off one by one until the end when they kill it. Right. And like that's the story. Yeah. And I almost feel like not all the way there, but like this film is almost like there's an alien, they want to capture it on film, and they're going to try and do that.
It's a shame that the ideas couldn't match the visual spectacle in terms of size. It's a shame that the ideas aren't as big as the visuals.
Yeah.
There's not that much of a gap, but it's just like normally Jordan Peele's films ideas are bigger than the imagery.
Yes.
This is the other way around. It's
there's no we didn't talk about the film on our way back because we were going to save it for this, but there wasn't very much I wanted to grab you and go, what did you think of this and this, and what about that? Which when I left the film for Us and Get Out, I was like just dripping with enthusiasm to like dissect the plot. Whereas here I'm like I want to know about little specific things.
It's quite
I
sealed.
liked the design of the UFO looking alien. Yeah. But I wasn't like, oh my God, what a... Because it also would have been dumb if this was like a weird someone from the side was controlling this thing to manipulate them. That also would have sucked. So I can't think of a better, higher concept plan for this.
We're not here to say that, you should have come up with a better ending. It's just, it works. It's more of a curiosity more than I think a real knockout.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Should someone go and see it?
I think if you like Jordan Peele, you're probably already going to go see it. Should someone go and see it? Well, this is actually quite hard because I have friends, we go see horror films together, right?
Yeah.
And they've been really keen to see Nope. But I'm going to say to them, it's not scary. I can't recommend this film because it's scary. It's not thrilling in the thriller sense. It has moments of spectacle that are interesting.
Very entertaining.
Yes, I think his other films are more entertaining. But yeah, entertaining enough. It's... Yeah, how do I sell this to people?
If you like the look of it, go see it, I'd say. But I don't think you need to be like there with your intellectual pen and paper wondering how it's gonna change your perception.
I think it will frustrate you if you do that.
Yeah. Enjoy it for the ride that it is.
Just sit back and enjoy the spectacle.
I will, I think we're holding it up to... It's an original IP, which is so
great.
rare. I would take Nopes. I would take 5 more Nopes coming out in the year than like things that just feel very tired or they're just like a very done format.
Here's the thing also about the limits of speaking about it in like a film podcast. And naturally, in our enthusiasm for the film, we will follow every tract about a movie, and that will inevitably lead us to talking about where it doesn't quite work and what doesn't, what maybe lets it down. Yeah. That's not us saying we don't like it or criticizing it. It's just observing it in all its form.
Yeah.
With that, I think we've probably covered enough ground with it. But what I think would be great to hear is what other people made of it.
Yes.
We've had lots of comments saying, I can't wait to get your guys' thoughts on this. What do you think? Maybe you guys are more enthusiastic than we are. Maybe James and I have had what I had that time with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Maybe you and I have
come back to it in a year.
You and I have seen it in the morning screening, but if we watch it in a year's time, we might get more out of it. Let us know what you think.
On Instagram, we were posting not behind the scenes, but just shots of us going into the IMAX and being silly buffoons. So follow Instagram at pulpkitchenpodcast.com if you want to see action of when we do go to the cinema. But yeah, hello at pulpkitchenpodcast.com.
Yeah, write
for your
in.
thoughts.
Let us know.
And we'll read them out. We can revisit this discussion in another episode when more people have seen it. But yeah, Nope.
Curious.
George, should we go through some emails that we got this week?
Let's do it. I love hearing from people.
Theo wrote into hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com just like you can, and he said, hey guys, big fan of the pod.
Yay.
I'm a film reviewer and heard you talking about Men. Thought I'd drop the story of the press screening I was at, in which during the mad conclusion where Rory... Spoilers for Men.
Spoilers for Men. We are going to do
Spoilers for Men.
There is a spoiler discussion that we had coming up.
He's just going to mention something about the end. I thought I'd drop in the story of the press screening I was at, in which during the mad conclusion where, spoilers, Rory Kinnear is birthed into the world many, many times.
Yes, violently and bloodily.
A journalist loudly shouted, "For fuck's sake, Rory, not again." Look forward to the Men spoiler therapy pod. Where do you even begin? Cheers, Theo. Yeah, I mean, where do you even begin? George, would you say that at one of the many birthings of Rory Kinnear, you were ever like eye rolling for fuck's sake?
I wasn't running. Oh right. I wasn't kind of like, for fuck's sake, I was like, oh, no, not again. And I remember just thinking, oh, it's so violent.
It's just so disgusting.
Then we have another email about Men, I believe, at some
do
point.
we? Maybe I'll find it. I'll do this one afterwards. Yeah, but I think my face was just doing this.
James is looking surprised.
Like, just like my mouth
cartoon.
open, eyebrows raised, just like, okay, yeah, I get it. Where do I... You know when you start trying to understand something and it's already evolved a few times before I can even capture it. So I'm like walking home, like scratching my head, thinking,
look,
I need to discuss
I won't
this.
lie, the ending of Men isn't perfect.
No, but fantastic film that I think is being overlooked. Ashley also writes into hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com and says, hi both, feels like a broken record at this point, but I recently found your content via TikTok and was immediately drawn to not only your type of content, but also the way you both articulate your points so well.
Oh,
I followed and turned on notifications almost instantaneously.
Thank you. And that's what everyone should be doing.
Turn on your notifications when we post. I do a lot of long distance driving for work, mainly up and down the M4 from Cardiff and London.
Good road.
So thank you for keeping me company over the last few weeks. Much appreciated. Ashley, that's really cool. Thank you. I recently listened to episode 35, reacting to Marvel's phases 5 and 6, which we did. We sort of broke down the upcoming things. Towards the latter end of the podcast, a viewer asked you about the possibility of the horror genre dying. While I'm glad you disagree and named some brilliant recent horror flicks such as It Follows and Lights Out, etc., I was shocked to hear you both thoroughly praised Men. Yeah. I thought the majority of it was fine. Not bad, not great, just fine. But I felt severely let down by the final 15 minutes. I felt like there was no cohesion from Act 1, 2 into 3. Almost like the writers went, fuck it, let's take some raw hallucinogens and draw what we see, and then wrote it into the film. I really liked the final scene between the protagonist and her ex-boyfriend, but everything in between I thought was farcical. What exactly am I missing? Why is my boy Rory Kinnear giving birth to himself multiple times? Easily my least favourite Alex Garland film, 3 out of 10. Would be interesting to hear your takes on the not only the finale itself, but also my opinion. Keep up the fantastic work. All the best, Ashley.
You and I have had a discussion about Men when I see it, and that should be coming out at some point on the channel,
We've done
right?
Spoiler interpretation analysis of that ending.
And you gave quite an interesting theory about it. So what I would say to Ashley is look out for it. It should be coming out soon, and hopefully that gives you some catharsis and some answers, more than probably the ending of Men did for itself.
And I would say, I don't think what you've said is invalid. I don't think I agree, but I can see why you would feel that way.
Yes.
Men as a title, in the font and the typeface which it's done, I think that invokes a reaction and an expectation of theme.
That it's a really pointed idea,
Yeah, it's very like, hey, here we go, we're going there.
We're going about men. But actually it's not as clear cut as that, is it really?
And then the ending is just, go listen to us. We are going to drop it soon. We're sorry we haven't. We've been saving some content.
Yeah.
But it's a film that deserves to be discussed. So there you go on Men.
Next email.
This next one's from Joe. Hi lads, loving the pod. I was just interested to see if you had any thoughts on a few controversial things that happened in the movie world recently. Firstly, the cancellation of Batgirl. I have mixed thoughts on this. I think it's awful for the team that worked on it, and it's a shame that we won't get to see Brendan Fraser as the villain. Love Brendan Fraser. But on the other side, I feel like for a company who happily released Suicide Squad and Justice League, but cancelled this says a lot about maybe the quality of the movie. could have been a blessing in disguise. The other thing is how recently streaming services are getting rid of their own originals. I know HBO Max have gotten rid of a load, and I think Netflix are planning on it. Does this now prove that physical media is still so important? That's from Joe.
Okay.
Interesting question there.
We'll try and answer these quickly. That first point about Batgirl, yeah, that was a really interesting story. So Warner Brothers filmed Batgirl, it cost $70 million. They filmed it entirely in Glasgow. It had Michael Keaton in it. It had Brendan Fraser, and I think even Ezra Miller was meant to be in it as the Flash, right? And then they test screened it, as they do with all films, and it was not reading well with the test audience. And they made the very rare decision to not even release it.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is I read that it's if they don't release it, then they don't have to report a loss on their books, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you put it out there and you lose money, you have to report it. So they can just sit it as a I don't know the ins and outs of the finances.
Experimental test.
But obviously, it seems like this incredibly wasteful act, and is very sad for the talent involved and the people who worked on it. Not just the big names, but and the directors, but all the people who devoted probably 3 months of their time on that project, probably turned down other projects to work on that. The local groundwork, that's a big film to pull, and that's a real shame.
Huge, as big as IPs get.
Yeah, we're not talking about a film that was made for $5 million and gets released 5 years from now. Yeah. It's like this is a recognizable IP that's been shelved. That is, I think it's waste. Sorry for the motor. I think it's wasteful and really disappointing. But
you haven't seen it.
Cynical. Well, I know, but this is it, right? It could be awful. And as the email says, if it's worse than Justice League and worse than Batman's
2017
Superman,
Justice League, especially.
Yeah, 2016. Yeah. If it's rougher than that, then maybe they're right. Maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they go, guys, we're not going to put it out there half finished. Because what's more depressing? Going to see it, and you know what we all would have said? We all would have said, this isn't finished. This is awful. Yeah. How have they released this?
DC is so bad. Because I think maybe DC are really trying to turn the cruise ship on the perception of their films.
Which is what they basically said this was. They said, we've changed our entire strategy, and this is now out of date, so we're not going to release it. We've got a 10-year plan to protect the DC brand.
They've got the money and the time.
Fine. So yeah, we haven't seen it, so we'll never know. It's just
there's also something, this concept of streaming services deleting, erasing content that they no longer feel like is worthy of their platform is another thing. I think we've become incredibly reliant on a digital service in some server farm supplying us with content. I'm not saying that I think the Netflix original library is one of the greatest libraries that exists known to man. I think opposite. But imagine if there was a show that you loved that nobody else did, but you knew you could watch it infinitely on Netflix. There was a Netflix original that you paid your subscription for, and all of a sudden Netflix is like, no, this is gone forever.
Well, they wouldn't take them off the platform, would they? They wouldn't make any more, right?
Oh, I thought it's like they're taking stuff off. This is HBO Max removing stuff from their platform. It's not cancelling shows. It is literally taking it off the platform.
That's what
This is a big problem in video games, by the way, because video games now, people don't buy them physically. You can do, but people don't buy them physically. You buy them digitally. But you're still dependent on PlayStation or Xbox letting you download the game versus if you have a game cartridge from the 90s. You can play that forever. Same thing with the DVD, right?
Same with any media. Music, same thing. Spotify could just get rid of...
Just go...
In the same way that Neil Young and Joni Mitchell pulled their stuff off of Spotify earlier this year. And it's so unless you own a Joni Mitchell, Neil Young CD, that's it then.
But you buy it a la carte.
Yeah.
I think we're going to hear more stories about this.
It is interesting to see how the landscape is.
But at the same
shifting.
time, I think the value proposition of buying every single piece of film, music a la carte wasn't working. No. It was too expensive.
Oh, God,
and people pirated everything.
Yeah.
But I guess what you lose in a sense of valid ownership. Sorry, what you gain, what you lose from valid ownership.
It's a rental market, not a buyer's market. Yeah. On that, I wanted to just... You and I don't have Paramount Plus, but they've just launched it in the UK, right? And there's big adverts everywhere about it. And I haven't engaged with it, but I am actually that is a very bold thing to have done. I mean, they were always going to do it, but they are late to the game.
Really late.
So late that this year there have been so many stories about streaming, how the streaming world is changing. Netflix is suffering.
Their subscriptions are going down, especially in the economic climate we're facing.
So many stories saying people, one of the first things to, when they tightening their belts,
cancel your Netflix,
is cancelling their subscriptions, right? And then Paramount Plus come along. And I've heard it firsthand. I've said to people, I've said to my parents, I was like, you love The Godfather. That The Offer, the series about the making of The Godfather, is on Paramount Plus. I really want to see it. I said, are you going to watch it? And they were like, we can't sign up to another one. There's too many. It's such a saturated market.
My parents, and I think our parents' generation, hate subscriptions.
Yes.
They hate the idea of giving money automatically every month, and we are so much more used to it.
But you know what? It's all in the streaming's hands, isn't it? Because it's basically buffet pricing, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like you buy a ticket, you can go watch whatever you want, but it's like the watching, that's on you. We don't have to like bring you stuff per ticket. It's like, we've got it all here. You've paid your ticket. Go help yourself. And people to really use it. Interesting. Next email.
This one is from Julia.
Hey,
Greetings
Julia.
from Sweden.
Sweden, we got a Swedish email.
First of all, love the podcast. Like many others, I found it on TikTok a few months ago and started binging. I love hearing the discussions, and she's put stealing line through it / repeating your points to all of my friends. I'll try to keep this short. Personally, I love a chick flick movie where nothing really happens. I cannot tell you how ecstatic I was to hear that you referenced Down with Love a few episodes ago, as it is one of my... I cannot tell you how ecstatic I was to hear you reference Down with Love a few episodes ago, as it is one of my all-time favorite movies. I'm also a fan of big movie commentaries on YouTube. Although I love all the content creators I watch, I find there is a huge disparity in how chick flicks and movies aimed for teenage girls are received. When it comes to 90s or noughties movies, the female commentators often feel nostalgic and talk positively about the movie or how much they loved it growing up. In the case of newer releases like Tall Girl, which isn't exactly a masterpiece, they often make a fun critique of the movie, as all commentators do, but usually find something good to take away from it or where the movie could have gone.
Right.
I find that male creators often complain about plot holes, call such movies stupid, wish for more exciting plot points, and are surprised that the movies are, quote, actually funny, saying things like, why is this good? Or why am I invested now? I think this is such a shame. I was wondering if you had any opinions on favorite chick flicks or movies aimed for a female audience. I also wondered if you had any examples of movies that have been written off as chick flicks or rom-coms when they really aren't. A big open-ended, but I'd love to hear a discussion about it. Keep up the great work, Julia. P.S. I would love an episode about chick flicks versus dude bro movies.
Well, massive questions there.
Massive ones.
Dude bro, chick flicks, all that kind of stuff. Where do you even start? I mean, I just try not to see things through that lens. But Julia, I do have a nice surprise for you. In the time since your email has come in, I have gone and watched Down with Love now, and I can give you my thoughts thusly. Down with Love, do you remember, it was when we were talking about Peyton Reed, who directed Ant-Man.
Yes.
And I mentioned he made this film in 2003. It's set in the 60s. It's got Ewan McGregor, Renée Zellweger, Sarah Paulson. And it is this, basically, I describe it as a raunchy sex comedy, pastiche, farce that is completely camp and can barely keep a straight face, right? And it was famous for being a bit of a flop at the time and is now kind of having its moment being rediscovered. I watched it and I had an absolute hoot. It is so much fun.
Yeah.
It is so witty.
What year again, sorry?
2003.
Okay.
Visually witty, script witty. It's fast paced, it's fast talking.
It sounds great.
There's little bits of Some Like It Hot in there. There's little bits of The Apartment there. It's like the horniest episode of Mad Men you've ever seen, right?
Really?
It talks about sex all the time. There's no sex scene in it, but it's just about, by setting it in the 60s, about women's liberation and sexual liberation coming through. And Ewan McGregor plays this Playboy magazine writer called Catcher Block. And Renée Zellweger plays, oh my God, I can't remember her name. Thingy Novak, right? And she's written this book, which is like this manifesto about Down with Love. You don't need love. Women can get the same satisfaction from love as they can from chocolate, right? It's just all about, but women can have sex, right? And you've got those as the primary characters. And then like all good farces, you have supporting characters. You have Sarah Paulson as Renée Zellweger's editor, who's kind of her first scene is like she comes out of an elevator smoking a cigarette and the elevator's just filled with smoke. And Ewan McGregor's second hand is his editor, played by David Hyde Pierce from who's Niles in Frasier, right? Who looks like he's walked straight off the set of Frasier and gone straight into Down with Love and played the exact same character shamelessly.
That thing.
Yeah, he does it great, but like if you've been playing that character for 10 years, you might as well come up and do it this. And you have people mistaken identities, people going undercover, people doing accents, people, turning up at parties while the other one leaves out the other door.
Right, okay.
It's so much fun. But what I think it is that it's so full and so rich and vibrant and full of its own style.
Wow, I'm in.
Yeah, that I think I'm not actually in a way surprised that in 2003 people were like, "What the fuck is this?
Yeah,
I don't understand this. This is just too." You've got at the time, Ewan McGregor had just done Moulin Rouge and was in Star Wars, and Renée Zellweger had just done Chicago, and like
peak.
It peak for them.
Yeah.
And I think it's a real shame that people didn't stand up to meet this film. They did I hate it's a cliche, but they don't make them like that anymore.
Yeah.
Like even though that film itself is a throwback to different types of cinema from the past, like just having that confidence to be that specific and that niche and that funny. Is that a great hoot? It's on Disney Plus.
Oh, great! I was literally about to ask you where can I watch it.
Yeah, it's fun. Just go with it. And there are some there's bits in it that could be almost in an Austin Powers film.
Really?
It's fun. Down with love. Anyway, there you go, Julia.
Huge praise.
I can't remember the rest of your question. But
About this whole of gendered reactions to films. I think, look, modern films are definitely the critique is that every single film is made for the 14-year-old boy audience. And I think in a lot of ways that's true, and I think you could also make an argument that it isn't. I think in the era that you and I grew up in, films were far more gendered.
Yes.
This is a girly movie.
Yes.
This is a boys movie. And I think while there is the teenage superhero transformer verse that we live in now, I do think, apart from that, films aren't this is for girls, this is for boys.
Yeah,
I think we have kind of moved on from that.
It's like the cinema executives finally realised that they can make just as much money from women as they
Exactly.
can from men. So try to make films for everyone.
Like you want your rom-com to be smart and appealing to both guy and girl. And I think that has changed in the way we market films. So if you've got your dude bro YouTube commentator doing a review of a film, I think when we look at the poster, we look at the trailer, that will give you a really weird indication as to what that film was for, and probably creates this impression of like, well, why do I like this? This is like bubblegum pop pink font. Like if you look at the cover art for Clueless,
yes,
you might be like, why would a dude bro watch that film? But it's great, and it can be enjoyed by everyone.
Yeah, this is why it's quite like you and I have always tried. We just don't really look at things through that lens.
I have two older
right?
sisters. I didn't have a choice what I watched growing up.
And I've always just liked films. I don't care whether
it's good.
If it's good, I'll watch it. That really is my criteria. Yeah. So, and why is it? Who's to say that there's not something in Mean Girls or Clueless or Easy A that I can't enjoy because I'm a man?
Yeah, like Mean Girls, like the bright pink and everything. Like you would just dismiss that as any other like girly trash.
It's similarly like when I said recently, like Jennifer's body like looks like a trashy chick, but like there's plenty of stuff that you can enjoy in that. So.
They don't make them like they used to, and they don't market them like they used to, which is, I think, why you get that. As far as why people comment the way they do on a film, that's for them. I can't comment on why they have that.
On the commenters, yeah.
But this is the thing that keeps coming up about chick flicks and wanting a bit more. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question a little bit. This one is from Jack. Jack writes into hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com, just like you can. Says, "Hi boys, big fan. I've just recently finished the show Under the Banner of Heaven, and I quite enjoyed it. It's a Mormon detective show based on a true crime story. Great cast in my opinion. Andrew Garfield, good in everything. Yep. Wyatt Russell, that's him saying that, not me, but I also agree.
I agree with that.
I agree. Wyatt Russell, I think he's quite underrated. I liked him a lot in this. Sam Worthington, the first time I've seen him as anything other than that Avatar guy, though he was also great. Lots more, including Daisy Edgar Jones and Rory Culkin. He hams it up a little, brackets. I think this is a good, compelling show that's a bit too packed with backstory. Love to hear if you have seen any of it or are planning to." Jack.
Look, that's on Disney Plus as well. Yeah. And I see it and I go, when I have time, I can really only handle one series at a time. I'm very much just about to be finished with Better Call Saul, and then I think then I'm open for business, and it'll probably be Under the Banner of Heaven.
On that, that Vince Gilligan is shopping around his next IP.
Because it's an original one, and everyone is so excited.
He must be getting so much money thrown at him to have ownership for his next show.
I can't tell you how fucking
I'm so
amazing.
excited to go back into Better Call Saul.
I cannot tell you how superb this series. Actually, like I'm so happy that it's just so well crafted.
Maybe I should watch it and we do a deep dive in a month and just go through.
You think you could get through all 6 seasons?
Well, I've seen 3 of them, but maybe I need to go back.
Recaps and then you do. I think you could do it.
So I just I'd love to do that. Anyway.
Yeah.
This next one is from Shane from Texas.
Hey!
And you know why I know it's from Texas? Because he drops a couple of y'alls in his email, which we just love. So Shane writes into hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com and says, "Hi guys, my name is Shane from Texas.
Well, first
I'll just let you know that I love your podcast. Y'all are amazing. A very good looking guys."
He's going to be turning us off now.
I will stop
But
the
I want to know,
accent.
is he like Dallas or Houston or like Austin?
Shane, where in Texas is big?
It's
place.
hard for us. Texas is like 4 times the size of the UK.
Yeah, it
So-
actually is.
by the way, I mentioned this to James off screen, but I want to say it again now.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't seen this already, there's a video on YouTube of Fred Armisen,
Oh, yeah.
fantastic comic character actor, doing all the accents of all the states in the US.
Better than we could ever do.
That is so funny and so brilliant. He has a whole bit about Texas that I just love. Go seek it out. Anyway, what does Shane have to say?
Shane, he says, y'all are amazing and
Don't
very
read it.
good looking
Don't read it.
guys. Congrats on winning the genetics lottery. The question
That's
I wanted
very
to
kind.
ask you is, what are your thoughts and experiences rewatching a film that either you watched when you were younger or the film was deemed for a certain age group that you aged out of? For example, I rewatched Forrest Gump recently. I actually find myself not finding it as endearing as I did before years ago in my early 20s, but now getting closer to my 30s, what I found myself loving more than anything is one scene from it. It's where Forrest is in front of Jenny's grave. That hit me more than ever now because I have a context to connect that with. He says, you know, a few loved ones in my life that I hold dear.
We buried you on the Tuesday.
Yeah. I appreciate that movie is now more than ever before. I appreciate that movie now more than ever before. Had a similar experience recently, ? Sorry for the long email. A supporter to y'all always. Shane.
Thank you, Shane. I don't know how to answer that. I was going to say, like we talked about before, like 500 Days of Summer, like to the time, rediscover. What I am going to do is refer to the films I always refer to, and then, don't worry, I am going to get James to do it at one point, which is the before films.
Yes.
Now, the reason I bring up the before films again and the before trilogy is because those films, what works with us, they exist in time. What I mean by that is, the first film is, about they're in their 20s. The second film, and I'm not trying to talk about plot, the second film in their 30s, and then the third film they're in their 40s, right? And it's like, when I first watched the first film, I was the same age as those characters, and I really engaged with them, and I really related to them, and I really got it. In the years subsequent to that of rewatching it, I have had different feelings towards those characters and how they behave now. So as I've got older into my later 20s, I found myself responding much more strongly to the second film and those characters in their early 30s, and looking at these characters in their early 20s and going, I actually think differently to that now. I feel differently about you as a character. But in a way that is not to the film's detriment. It makes actually the film more rich. It's almost like reacting to a real person. Yeah. So there are moments now with Before Sunrise, I think, at the time I found that, I used to love it when Jesse made that point. But now I feel like, I know you. I know that kind of person you are now, and I react to you differently. I don't want to try and spoil it. James, I have a whole plan for the before films for you, and we'll get to it. But that is, in short, my answer for you there, Shane.
I definitely have something that's very similar, because it's a very common thing with getting older and specifically becoming an adult. And, when you realize your parents aren't superheroes, and you realize, they were my age when they didn't have kids. But, you see a picture of them, and you're like, oh, that's my mum and dad at my age. They're just people too trying to figure it out, and it really makes you completely rethink it. And someone can say that to you. Sorry, sirens are on our end. Someone can say that to you a million times, but it's only until you actually have that moment of realization that you go like, oh shit, everyone's just trying to do.
They don't know what's coming next. Yeah.
But that's a great thing.
When you see a picture of your parents and they look like adults, but they're young adults, and you realize like they're younger than you. So you see a picture of parents and they're 24. Yes. And you're like, oh, I'm 28.
I'd say an example would be, which is kind of similar to your Forrest Gump one, but when I watched Coco and when it talks about memory loss and Alzheimer's with an old person, like I had a few years before gone through something very similar, huge bum out, but I don't think I would have had anywhere near to the emotional reaction I had at the end of Coco than in that film.
I have this more with music. There are certain songs and things that, like, when I was younger, I was like, that's cool. And the older I get, the more of an emotional reaction I have to them. That I think I will get to the point where I'll listen to a song and not only will I cry. I actually think, like, if I listen to the song in my 50s, I won't be able to listen to it because it'll just be so resonant and real. Yeah. And the idea of loss and growth and regret,
age patinaing your impression on everything.
Beautifully put there. Yeah.
This is new. Hey, Pulky.
Pulky.
We've never been just abbreviated to Pulky.
Portmanteau.
I hope you were both Hope you are both well. First off, loved the past few MCU segments you have done, and you really nailed down my feelings for the MCU at the moment. Hopefully the next lot of movies will get us back on track. Yes, if you didn't know, we ended up doing 3 MCU episodes by accident. We did a 2-part breakdown of all the directors that have been involved in the MCU, what work they did before, the work they did for Marvel, and the work they did afterwards. We split it into 2 parts because there were quite a lot. And then basically once we published that episode, Kevin Feige announced like the entire slate of the next 4 years of Marvel. And we went through all of those and what we thought and excited. So if you haven't listened to those, please go and check them out. But Daniel says, another question for you. Have you guys watched the Bollywood movie RRR on Netflix yet? I saw a lot of reviews and clips of this movie on TikTok and YouTube, so finally gave it a watch. Got to say, I loved it. One of my favorite movies of the year so far, and I've never watched a Bollywood movie before. Don't let the 3-hour runtime put you off if you haven't seen this. It flies by. Keep up the good work, Daniel.
I haven't seen RRR. You're not the first person to write about that. I know it's been this huge breakout hit on streaming, and every person I know who's seen it has said, it's crazy, you have to. Literally, the only thing I'm struggling with is just trying to find 3 hours where I can sit down and watch it and enjoy it. But it's definitely on my list. I've seen a little bit of Bollywood, but I'd love to see more.
Hi, both. This one is from Kane. Hi both, love your work. Been following for months and often re-listen to your back catalogue when doing cooking, cleaning, or just generally in the background.
A re-listener? You get a medal, sir.
Wow, Kane. If you are re-listening, not if you're listening to this, if you're re-listening to this,
does that
congrats,
mean that,
man.
I want to go back to the one where George made the Reuben sandwich.
Yeah,
let's go back to that. Yeah. What was the one where...
What was the sausage pasta?
Fantastic.
No, Kane, that's so cool. Thank you so much. Re-listening to episode 22 last night. I love a 90-minute movie.
Yes.
Neither of you mentioned the classic that is Mean Girls at 97 minutes. For the cultural impact and longevity that it has, it is a surprise it is so short. Where do you rank Mean Girls? I think... We keep mentioning Mean Girls.
We literally talked about it a couple of
I feel
years
like we mention it almost every week as like a poster child. It does just get thrown in there quite a lot.
I love Mean Girls. I think it's great.
Is brilliant. I haven't seen it in years, and I'm sure it's still brilliant. Lindsay Lohan's great as well.
Yeah, I'd love to rewatch it. Tina Fey pen script. And
Rachel McAdams just nailing Regina George.
I think
Amy Poehler as the mom. Hey guys, how are you? Do you want a condom?
I think of kind of Bridesmaids in a similar way, which is when I first watched Bridesmaids and Mean Girls, I was like, yeah, okay, those are kind of cool. Yeah. Again, at the time, not marketed to people like us. And then I go back and watch it, and Mean Girls is brilliant, just so funny. And I remember watching it with a group of people.
Above the rest.
When I watched it with a group of people, the last time I watched it, I was laughing the most, every single scene. And it got to a point where people said, like, everyone was enjoying it, but they're like, George, you are like really liking this film, aren't you? You are really enjoying it. And similarly with Bridesmaids, I think that's just wonderful.
And like, it's still quoted. She doesn't even go here.
Yeah.
I saw Regina George wearing army pants and flip-flops, so I bought army pants and flip-flops. I remember going, my whole family went to go see that in cinema, and like my sister had dragged us to go see it. Can we go see Mean Girls? Again, marketing, like poster. And we were all like, fine. But my mum, my dad, and we were all in hysterics in the cinema watching it because it's so funny.
But this is the thing, you and I have long held that, like, Mean Girls is great. And most people we know love Mean Girls, and we know it's really funny. But obviously, I forget that there was a time when I hadn't seen Mean Girls, and I thought, well, that really dumb-looking film that wasn't marketed to me. And then there obviously was the turning point when people go, and you realise this film is very funny, very smart. Yeah. What do you mean? I was like, she's talking to her parents. It's something like they're going off to the concert. It's like, what do you mean you don't want to go? You love the music of Lady Blacksmith Mombasa.
When the principal's like, I will keep you here all night. We can't keep them past 5. I will keep you here till 5. And then Kane adds, P.S. Can we get more stories and background information from James? A great storyteller. The info on IMAX and the lost bag on the plane were great additions. Best wishes, Kane. That's very kind.
I will try. Is this my cue to leave?
I don't think people would like the lost bag on the plane. No. But I will try to keep the stories coming. But that's very kind. This one is from Ben from Boston. Hi, Pulp Kitchen.
Which Boston? Boston, USA or Boston, Lincolnshire?
I assume... Yeah, we don't know. Maybe we can tell by the way he writes in. Hi, Pulp Kitchen. Have you seen the documentary? This film not yet.
Seen the?
You have seen the documentary?
No, Boston.
Boston.
No, hang on. It's like Whitey Bulger. Whitey Bull. Hey,
Peter Griffin.
Boston. No, is that Boston?
Yeah.
Massachusetts.
The Departed.
Yeah, in Quincy.
Hey,
you in Southie.
Going down Yonkers.
And
that's New York.
No, it's Mark Wahlberg.
Hey, he's a Southie.
He's a Southie. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Whoever.
Leonardo DiCaprio? This is Ben.
I'm so sorry, Ben. If you are from Boston,
Leonardo DiCaprio's in the therapy session with what's her face.
Vera Farmiga.
Yeah. He's like, what the fuck is this? You give me some fucking pill and this and that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jackie.
Anyway.
What's the difference?
Yeah, what's the difference?
Have you seen the documentary, This Film Not Yet Rated? It's about the Motion Picture Association and how it assigns ratings to films. Many famous directors and actors are interviewed about how the rating process distorts what is both acceptable and commercially viable to create. Sorry, go on, George.
No, I was just saying, he said Motion Picture Association, which means he's American, which means he's right from the Boston, USA, because if he was British, he would be saying BBFC.
You just Sherlocked him. The documentary makers end up hiring a private investigator to uncover the identity of MPA members who are supposed to be anonymous, and they end up being exactly who you would expect them to be. For a climax, they submit the documentary to the MPA for a rating. Also, curious to hear your thoughts on movie 43. The cast alone is worth discussing. Whenever I discuss that a friend hasn't seen it, I get them to agree to watch the first scene. We inevitably end up watching the whole movie. It's one of my favorite movies to show people, just to get their reactions to the myriad ridiculous vignettes. Thanks to all you do, Ben from Boston.
Right, what was the first bit?
First bit was about this film is not yet rated.
I haven't seen that, haven't heard about it. Sounds
cool,
very interesting. The only thing I really have to say in response is that there's a British filmmaker called Charlie Shackleton. He used to go by Charlie Lime, but he's Charlie Shackleton now. He made a protest film, which was I think a 600-minute film of paint drying on a wall called Paint Drying. But because he released it as a film, it had to be watched by the BBFC to be rated. So to protest,
just in case there wasn't a massive dick in the middle of it.
So he was just like, there you go. And they had to watch 600 minutes of paint drying, which I think is genius.
How many hours is 600 minutes? That's 6.
A lot.
That's 60.
I don't know. It's a lot of minutes.
I'm
not a mathematician. Ask my accountant.
I don't know. No, it's not 60 hours.
Second part of that email?
Second thought, movie 43.
Haven't seen it. To be honest with you, don't really want to see it. I remember listening to Kermode at the time and when it came out. And I think what happened is those filmmakers were able to trick loads of people into being in it because they made it over like 4 years.
Yeah.
And when someone was like, oh, I can't do it, I'm not free till like, 2 years from now, they're like, we'll wait.
We'll wait.
I don't really want to. I'm so sorry. There are so many things I want to see. I really can't see myself putting on movie 43.
It's always the idea of what if so many people were in it, it would be impossible for someone to not want to watch it.
Yes.
Like if we got everyone. Do you remember the New Year's Eve, Valentine's Day?
Oh yeah, the ensembles.
The ensembles where like no one's paid, but they all get a cut of the gross of the film.
Yes, I remember you saying,
Yeah, that's usually how the structure, because you usually can't afford to have like all of those stars, like Jennifer Aniston, Bradley Cooper, and like 50 others. I believe you. I don't think I'm going to find myself watching movie 43 though. Yeah, sorry.
But thanks for the,
Thank you. Last one from Trevor from LA.
Oh, Trevor from LA.
Trevor from LA.
With the friend who didn't know what a movie was.
Yeah, that was an amazing email we got about.
Sorry, I'll let you.
No, it was about someone who had he'd met someone who had never ever seen a film, and then he broke down the films that he was going to offer up for him to see, and he polled it, and then he sort of ran it by us. We discussed it and revealed it. It was great.
And it was Forrest Gump he went with, I think.
He went with Forrest Gump, and the options were The Matrix.
I have this image now that guy is now like loves movies, and he's like comic book guy.
Yeah,
he just sits in his chair all day watching things like
just like absorbing content.
Ever.
Yeah.
Hey Trevor, good to have you back.
Thank you again, Trevor from LA. Great episode on films you've never seen. This is our last episode that we just did. It's always been one of my favorite film-related topics to discuss. The most famous film I've never seen is Schindler's List. I just can't bring myself to watch it because I just know it's going to make me angry. I haven't watched 12 Years a Slave for the same reason. I mean, you are missing some genuinely incredible films. They are really uncomfortable and challenging watches, but so important because of what they depict.
And like saying, oh, it'll make you feel angry. I mean, that's just like one kind of very broad emotion to apply to. The beauty of those two films is that they really arise a lot of different emotions, a lot of different feelings.
I think he's tying up your thing just there.
Sorry, just for the listeners,
his mic's just
coming loose.
Bring it back straight.
I'm trying.
Those films, part of what I think is important is that it is made to make you feel uncomfortable. In Schindler's List, a lot of the scenes that you're seeing put on camera are direct recreations of some of the photography that I just can't fix, George.
Sorry, finish your point.
So I would often like direct recreations of some of the most famous images of the Holocaust, like when the character played by Ralph Fiennes, who used to snipe people from his room downstairs. Like that is a real thing that happened, and the ways in which they burned the bodies. I mean, not to get into it, but I think it's just an incredibly important
And
film.
the ending of Schindler's List is so profound and poignant.
Yeah. What can I say?
Well,
And 12 Years a Slave,
like,
also
you know,
so powerful.
Hot take. Those films are great.
Great podcast.
But to answer your question, his question is, are there any films that we haven't seen?
He's going to go into a couple of hints. I just interrupted
Sorry.
to interject. Should we fix your mic? Yeah. We're back. Just a couple of quick hits. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. There is a gorgeous 4K UHD remaster that just came out this year. Highly recommend that version for when you watch it, especially if you've got a big TV and a great sound system. That does sound tempting. I will say sometimes when they release films in ultra-sharp 4K and remaster them, it can take away a bit of the old charm. I remember when I watched a remastered version of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I felt like, because I used to watch that on VHS, and yeah, it looked great, but almost I felt like the dustiness of the sets.
It's about tactility of the
film,
the mise en scène,
Yeah, and the film wasn't made with that level of resolution and clarity, and I feel like some details would have been almost... And I feel like some details wouldn't have been picked up on when they were making it, but it's now visible to see. But that is good to know that it's been remastered.
It's like you don't always need to see it in the cold light of day.
Yes. Robin Hood. Because we talked about some films that we hadn't seen. Just picking up. Robin Hood in all caps ! First of all, definitely recommend Prince of Thieves with Costner. I've seen it. Yeah, it's good. And he says it's a lot of fun. It's one of those films that my family always watched when I was a kid. Also, suggestion for a future episode: the films of your family. The films of your family watched during
the
films of your family watched during your childhood. These are the films of my family. You also forgot one other Robin Hood, the spoof Robin Hood, Men in Tights with Carrie Ooles. Carrie Ooles, and a very young Dave Chappelle from 1993.
Yeah, the Mel Brooks film.
Yeah, I like Prince of Thieves. I can't say I've seen it in this millennium.
I've never seen it, but I'll give it a watch. It's got Alan Rickman in it. I know it's the bad guy.
Yes.
What are we
Cut his heart out with a spoon.
Mr. Potter, our newest celebrity.
Yes.
Seven Samurai. Once you watch it and get into Kurosawa and have watched Rashomon, I would love to hear you revisit The Last Duel with Affleck and Matt Damon. Perhaps a short bonus ep. The duel is basically a rehash of the formula established in Rashomon.
Yes.
Also, just a little silly note. Your section on Kurosawa reminded me of a very funny Reddit post from last year about samurai films. I'll put a screenshot below. Hope you and your family's doing okay in the drought. I live in LA and can tell you it can be pretty scary. Cheers, Trevor from LA.
It's funny about the drought. The UK has had its first ever drought. It was declared. We are in a drought.
Coming soon. Yeah. And then Trevor from LA also says, P.S. Bend It Like Beckham does mostly hold up, though the athlete in love with coach thing is a little problematic in 2022.
Okay, do you want to read his Reddit post?
Let's just go through.
So the Reddit post that he
attached? The Reddit post. Oh, that's in the email. So the last duel with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, you and I saw, loved, felt like it was criminally underseen and maybe a bit misunderstood.
Yeah. I know you did a review of it, and then I think I came back weeks later. But yeah, I that's good, solid. Yeah,
I didn't know it was linked to Rashomon. But
yeah.
Sounds great. And then the Reddit link, the screenshot that he sent, I'll just read that out now. It's titled, How Do I Tell My Boyfriend I Hate Samurai Films? My 24-year-old boyfriend and me, 29, think samurai films are the height of cinema, and I hate them. He gets so excited to show me these films, and I want to enjoy them, but goddamn, they're just so boring and unrelatable and long. I try so hard to get into them. I've sat through so many, but I just find my mind wandering and thinking about literally anything but what's in front of me. It's not a problem with foreign films. We watch a lot together that I really enjoy, but the samurai films haunt my fucking dreams. I know this sounds bad, but I genuinely have zero interest at all, but I keep pretending because he seems so excited for me to watch them, and I keep trying. But honestly, I don't know if I can keep doing it. He set it out so we watch at least 3 a week, and it's killing me. How do I tell him that I think they're boring as batshit and I can't watch them all of the time? I'm happy to make the effort for him and watch them every now and then, but this lockdown is bad enough without every evening being samurai night. Please help me.
Oh, well, obviously she's not written into the show, but I would just say, you need to just say to him.
Just say,
I can't.
3 is a lot. You've been a real trooper doing 3 a week. Shame. There you go. Those were the emails that received this week. I love our listeners. I think they're amazing. They are smart. They give us really good recommendations, just great questions.
Yeah.
If you are listening to the show and you thought maybe I should email in, maybe I should or shouldn't, would it be embarrassing? Please just do it.
Yeah.
We love
and
it.
also, if you're listening in a country that we haven't heard from yet,
Oh,
or
yeah,
haven't
please.
read out yet, please email in and let us know. Because
Please
we
do it.
love hearing how we are Mr. Worldwide.
I absolutely adore it. It just makes me remember that like people listen.
Yes, actual people.
yeah.
Also, like, love our UK listeners. Don't get us wrong.
Oh yeah, UK guys staying strong.
Yeah.
Grounded. They're being very UK about it. They're just grounded and miserable. Yeah, I don't need to email in.
Yeah, it's fine. It's
That's
hot,
fine.
I know,
yeah. I'll just listen. Thank you very much.
Um,
But yeah, as I said before, you can email hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com and get your email read out on the show. We might take a couple of weeks to get to it. Good stuff.
Thank you. So, James, as ever, let's finish with a quick game. And we're going to finish with a game that's been very popular with our audience, which is film opposites, film antonyms. Okay. You gave me 2 rounds before. I'm going to give you my round now. Okay.
God. Okay.
So, James, guess the film based on its antonym. Okay.
Okay.
In 3, 2, 1. The mediocre capture.
The what? The mediocre capture. The supreme what?
Break it down. The mediocre capture.
Mediocre. Freeing. The bit.
Go on.
The big free. The big. The thing. The mediocre capture.
The Great Escape.
Oh my God. Okay.
The Green Jaguar.
The red.
Pink Panther.
Oh. Wait. What? Oh yeah.
The Pink Kilometer.
The Green Mile.
Yes. Sit away from you.
Stand.
Yes.
Stand by me.
Yes. The Dream After Easter.
The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yes. The Moon is Sufficient.
The sun is. Wait. The moon. The sky. The stars.
The world is not enough. Dublin.
Belfast.
Yes. The Mother.
The father.
Live soft with forgiveness.
Die hard with a vengeance.
The best people in the village.
The worst people in town. The worst aliens in town. The worst
Person in the
person
world.
in the world. Oh.
National villain.
National villain. Local.
Yes.
Local hero.
Yes. Depressing old man.
Inspire. Oh, promising young woman.
Yes. Lazy boy.
Girl.
Yeah.
Lazy boy. Promise. What?
Working girl.
Working girl. Oh, okay.
Informed.
Uneducated. Ignorant.
Clueless. And lastly,
That's good.
difficult Z.
Difficult Z. Easy A.
Yeah.
I'm sweating. Very good.
Informed
Very
for
good.
clueless.
Informed. What's the opposite of informed?
Yeah, I know. I could think.
Oh my God.
You went
Keep talking. Yeah, so there. Oh my God.
Yeah. Anyway, so there you go, James. So that was my round. I think I'm happy with that. I wrote those myself on the train.
Yeah, to be honest, were you like chuckling to yourself writing?
My favourite one of the ones I wrote was either Dublin for Belfast or Sit Away From You.
Stand by.
I know, like the best person in the village, the best people in the village. It's
Worst
hard.
person in the
I was just thinking,
world,
like,
yeah.
what's the opposite of world? I guess like I could have said town. Oh no,
World, like
moon. The best. I
Moon.
could have said the best people in the moon.
the moon, the sun.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's hard.
there you go. That was the game. Thank you for listening to this episode of Pulp Kitchen. James, this is usually
Oh
your
my
bit,
God,
but go on, do it. James.
Yes, sorry. We post new episodes of this show every single Wednesday. Thank you for listening to this episode of Pulp Kitchen.
But also follow us on Instagram and TikTok, where we post loads of content throughout the week. And subscribe and like and give us a 5-star on Spotify and give us a review and, support us and write in.
If you're
Do all
listening,
the things.
if you're listening on Spotify, I know there are a lot of you doing it. Just scroll up, get your phone out. I know you're not doing it, and just go and give us a 5-star rating if you want to do it. YouTubers, stop. Please, like button, subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
It helps us so much. And click that notification bell if you want to be notified when we post.
We really appreciate it.
We really appreciated it. TikTok's always dropping bits. Instagram, we're about to hit 1,000 followers. Do it.
Have a good week.
We'll see you next week.